Zach Peay, Jamar Perkins. It's crunch time. It's crunch time here, live in the studios of Austin Peay. Zach Peay joined, as always, by Jamar Perkins. No Reese-Britt today, as he has found himself on the golf course. So Christian Hunt back in the hot seat today. Christian, glad to have you back here, man. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back.
It's a great week so far, to be honest. So I'm going to jump straight into this. We got a lot of things to cover. So Jamar, your week been going all right so far?
Yeah, it's going all right, man. A lot of schoolwork, finishing up before spring break, but
yeah.
Hey, getting it done in the done.
Right. Right, you are getting it done in the done.
Yeah.
Christian, how about your week? Your week been going good?
Good, man. I learned about a study abroad opportunity this summer, so I've been
the London trip, right?
Yeah. Trying to get that squared away, so I've been really busy with that, and then trying to get cleaned up for spring break so I can not do any schoolwork over spring break. That's the ideal scenario. We'll see if it happens.
That ain't going to happen for me, so I get that. I understand that.
It probably won't happen, but it's the ideal scenario.
Right. My week's been kind of good, guys. Everything's coming up my way, which is always odd. That's never how it's supposed to be, in my opinion. So I can't complain. If I did, it would never do me any good anyways. It just goes in one ear and out the other. So, but moving forward, let's talk about APSU men's basketball. The men's team played their last game of the season this past Friday. They would lose that game 89-71 and end the season with a 9-22 record overall, 3-15 conference record. Guys, not the game or not the season we thought the men's team would have. You and I talked about this kind of mostly starting in January when they got to conference play. We thought maybe they'd turn it around. But that didn't happen. So you get some more stuff on this?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of say what you said that we didn't think this was going to happen.
I mean,
if I'm being honest, moving into this conference, I wasn't expecting success right away.
Okay.
And but I wasn't expecting 3 wins in the conference either. So I feel like maybe more of the 7, 8 conference wins would have been more ideal for them. But I mean, to see this season is tough. But you look at these games.
They were in a lot
towards the beginning of them, they were in them, and it was like, I don't know injuries. I feel like you also have to take that into account. So when we talk about this Austin Peay squad, they used, I don't know the specific number, but I believe it's about 15 or 16 starting lineups all year. And that's because one player is out, another player comes in. Yeah. So like when you talk about Coach James and, a rough season for him, I feel
like a bad deck of cards.
You got to talk about the cards. But I mean, you also talk about some leads that were blown. You talk about that too. So I feel like it was an up and down season for them.
Maybe a combination of both, like some missing coaching opportunities, but also some injuries that played into that possibly. You never want to question leadership in that type of role, right? You always want to be like assured that guy is going to get it done no matter what's happening, right? Here's my question to you guys that I posed to you about this, and we'll move on to women's basketball for Austin Peay. Is Nate James in the hot seat?
I think he absolutely is. I mean, if you take a look at his record, and here in my stat sheet, it says he is 21-39, which mathematically speaking,
it's not good.
Is 35% win percentage.
Right.
Which is not good. Which, granted, you have to take into effect this season. That's a large percentage of his losses. But when you're Gerald Harrison, you're the guy making a decision. You look at 21-39 and go, that's not it. Right. So you absolutely have to at least put it on the table. It may not be whether it's boiling hot, but it's on the table. I think
I think it's warm
too. Mm-hmm. Like when you talk about how do you define a hot seat? Does hot seat mean bad season next year he's gone, or are you kind of towards the end of the year you were talking about it's maybe a little more warm?
I think bad season next year he's looking at possibly being replaced if he has another 22-loss record. I mean, if you have another 22 losses in this division after having a year to recruit and a year to really establish, now that you especially know these opponents, and he's got such a pedigree from Duke and all that other stuff, right? I'd expect a guy like this to come in and be able to work this out next season. Not immediately, but at least get close to 500, right? A 500 season and you're not fired.
And the way,
my opinion,
the way they ended, right? The brawl at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
That's a sour note in the way they.
That doesn't come just from players not playing well. That comes from something else happening in the locker room, right? I mean, this is just from players attacking each other either. I mean, that comes from something else happening.
Yep. Another thing to see too is who Austin Peay beat too. When you look at the wins, right. I mean, you look at Fisk, Milligan, like those were 2 of the 9 wins. So it's like almost not even a lot of Division I wins. So this was a rough season for Austin. I mean, basketball.
3-15 conference record, not good. You got to turn it around next season. I think personally your seat's warm. I think it gets warmer next season as long as you finish 500.
Yeah,
at least, right? But moving into the Austin Peay women's basketball team, we got a chance to call the last regular season game in the Dunn Center, partner. The women's team played their last regular season game this past Saturday, although they lost to Lipscomb 65-50, which was a sad game to watch. Unfortunately, I was really, really bummed they didn't get that win. They would clinch a 4th seed in the ASUN Conference tournament and in their inaugural season of the ASUN Conference, and they will play EKU, Eastern Kentucky University, on Sunday, March 5th. Time to be determined. I think we'll have time for that game, hopefully after today.
Yes, it should be tomorrow morning. Today being the last games of the regular season. Obviously, Austin Peay would have been playing tonight, but Central Arkansas forfeits that one.
Not enough players to play, and that's unfortunate too.
Eastern Kentucky, man. I mean, this is a team with them. When we walked into the game at Richmond, I was like, man, it's going to be a rough one. And Austin Peay really came out and competed. Right. They did a great job. And I was like, okay. That was one of those wins that really fired me up, and I was like, okay, Austin Peay's starting to play their brand of basketball.
I remember board hopping that game.
You talk about a player too, which I know you have more on this, Christian. Antoinette Walker is a dog. I mean, is a player that she leads the conference in 20-point games, and she scores, and whether it's in the mid-range area or she drives inside. I compared her game to similar of a kind of an Anthony Davis type. If I had to give an NBA comparison,
would you say that she's up as a candidate for like ASUN Most Valuable Player?
Yes.
For the conference this season?
Yes.
Because there's a couple other ones that we could consider for that.
I feel like that's kind of when you get into conference, it's a little weird seeing how that looks because you don't know who they're going to give it to, like as far as record-wise. Because, Eastern Kentucky finishes 5th in the conference. Honestly,
her work ethic in that. I think you go off stats, right?
Wow. 21.1 points a game, 50% from the field. When the last time that we played each other, she scored 33 points. The next player down scored 11. So she's going to get her bucket, seems like, no matter what. The question is, can the Govs stop her teammates enough to where that they're not able to make up the ground? Because she's going to score, it seems like, no matter what, scoring 20 points a game.
Governors at home defensively have done a great job all season. True. Right? And on the road, we've seen some struggles. And even at home at times, I will say there's been a game or two that's kind of been like a question mark. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, they've done a great job protecting the Dunn Center, right? So possibly could be one of the last games ever played at home, not counting possibly an NIL or anything like that, tournament or anything that they might be able to bid into. Mm-hmm. A lot of things happening here in Clarksville for that. So if you're in the area, come to the game. Yep. March 5th.
I think I said it too when we were on the air. I was like, man, I appreciate all of you listening. But if you're in the Clarksville area, I don't want you to be listening to me on Sunday. I want you in these seats supporting this women's basketball team.
Right. No, I agree with you. I don't want them listening to us on air. They need to come in and watch it. And watch our reactions in person because those are obviously always hilarious anyways, right? For sure. So, but moving forward to the college basketball top 10, I've got this popping up right here for everybody. Right now we've got Houston 27-2 right now at number 1, Alabama at number 2 at 25-4, Kansas at 24-5, UCLA at 25-4 as well, Purdue at 24-5 at number 5, Marquette at 6 at 23-6, Baylor at 7 at 21-8, Arizona at 24-5, Texas 22-7, and getting to the top 10, we haven't talked about all season in college basketball. It's Gonzaga, right? At 25-5 right now. Guys, interesting things happening, obviously. I want to read this real quick. Alabama head coach Nate Oates maintains that the university and his program have done the right thing in continuing to allow Brandon Miller to play. Miller was mentioned in testimony related to a deadly shooting, but has not been charged in any crime. That is something that I wanted to recorrect from our last story last week. He has not actually been allegedly accused of anything or anything like that. He's just been attached to this crime, right? So at least that's what I'm reading from all the ESPN stuff now and everything else that I'm kind of finding in this stuff. Alabama's still at number 2, and you're letting that guy play. My question: We're not too far away from March Madness, obviously.
Yeah,
and
we're in it now. It's March.
I know it's March. Yeah. So with the tournament just around the corner, does Alabama hold on to this number 2 seed, and does that player still play the rest of the season?
I think until there is legal action taken by the justice system, by whatever federal, local law enforcement, he will be allowed to play. Which it seems like they're taking kind of the NFL approach on it because the NFL is very much like, hey, we're going to let
now that there's NIL deals involved, you got to, right?
You kind of have to, but it's like they're very much hands off. Like, hey, we're going to let the legal system handle it first until we have to get involved. Which
I don't like that.
I don't like that. I wish there was a standard of that he, no matter what, he did something wrong. No matter what way you look at it, he did something wrong. There has to be some form of punishment in regards to that. So I don't like the way they're handling it. I don't like the way the coach or the ADs handle it.
Right.
I mean, Jamar, correct me if I'm wrong, if you think I'm wrong in this, but I just think there has to be something done to show we have punished him. He knows he did a wrong thing.
Something has to be done, I think.
The thing that makes it tough is, we're talking about murder.
We are.
We were talking obviously Brandon Miller didn't do it, but the actions that he,
we don't know for
being
sure.
accused,
Right,
that he's being
right.
accused of participating in led to murder.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's almost a topic where it's like, I feel like I kind of keep my mouth shut because it's like,
I get it.
Looking at it, part of me wants to be like, man, it's
innocent until proven guilty,
about,
right?
Yeah, it's like, let him
and that's
play.
something we forget about oftentimes too. Innocent until proven guilty.
But you also got to think about the girl's family. They're sitting here seeing it all over social media, getting it posted. He's still playing. You talk about which bad taste. I'm not sure if y'all saw his starting lineup when it was introduced.
The pat
One
down.
of the guy at the end of the what do you call it? The line as far as starting lineup line. He patted him down.
The last guy on it.
Poor taste.
Poor taste.
And, I like Brandon Miller. I mean, he represents Tennessee. He played up in Nashville, so it's like I've been following him for years. But I mean, it's almost. I feel like we've had this conversation before.
We have. We had it last week,
last year, and we talk about football. Everything that's happening, certain thing that happens, and it's.
Yeah.
It has to. I mean.
Yeah.
There isn't necessarily a separation between church and state when it comes to football and
there isn't.
when you're committing a crime. So I see what you're saying, Christian, and I understand why you think that he shouldn't,
especially when money's involved.
I think to caveat what you're saying, I think, and then we're going to move on into NBA stuff. I think that in general with a player like this, because they are such a big deal for the team, I understand them playing. However, the pat down stuff, the constant talk that we're all doing about it on social media, the Sports Center guys, there's a couple of people in ESPN that won't leave this alone at all. Yeah. Every day they're talking about this thing, right? Mm-hmm. In general, as much as I want to know coverage and I want to know what's going on and I want to know what's happening with everything, at the end of the day, you're right. That girl had a family. That family is watching this happen constantly on every platform they can see it on. Mm-hmm. At this point, it's time to start moving a little bit away from it so that we can let them figure it out themselves and we can move on and let this family grieve. Because right now that family has no option to grieve. And so it's just not fair to them.
I know you wanted to transition too, but I just want to throw something in really quickly. The thing I love about this top 10 is when you look at it.
It's different.
Where's Kentucky? Where's Duke?
I know,
Where's
it's great,
Tennessee?
right?
Where's Villanova?
Well, so Tennessee, I'm pretty sure, is down to 13, 12 or 13, I think, overall. They have some struggle games. They lost to Kentucky. Kentucky got them the couple weeks ago. Kentucky has been really North
Carolina. You're talking
Carolina,
about these
right.
teams that you're used to seeing up there consistently, not there. And that's
right.
I mean, if someone came out with a perfect bracket this year of all years, I'd be so surprised just because of
right.
No, I don't believe there's a person in this country that can truly tell me these teams are going to be in the Final Four. No. And truly believe
I mean, I think Houston will. I think Houston's the only one I could permanently say.
Maybe one.
And that's the only one.
Time stamping.
Yeah, and I'll say it right now. I think Houston will make it to the Final Four. That's just because I think they did it last year too. A, but B, they've got a lot of returning team. They've only got 2 losses of the season, and they've been playing lights out basketball. So that's the only team out of all the ones I think that can make it to the Final Four. I don't think they're making it to the final.
But
I think they're making it to the Final Four.
Let a team like Houston mess around and play a lower seeded Kentucky team.
Let Marquette get in there and see what they can do.
I think Marquette's going to be great, man. I really do.
Love Marquette.
I mean, you're talking about them too. They're a school that I'm surprised to see in the top 10 right now. Even though they got a great program and they should be in that in the top 10 conversation, the fact that they're above Baylor, Arizona, Texas, Gonzaga right now, it is insane. It is very much insane. But let's move into NBA standings right now. In the East right now, I've got the Celtics at 44-17, the Bucks in second, 76ers in third, Cavs in fourth, Nets in fifth, Knicks in sixth, Heat in seventh, Hawks in eighth, Raptors in ninth, and rounding out the top 10 for the Eastern Conference is the Wizards. In the West, we've got the Nuggets, the Grizzlies, the Kings, the Suns, the Clippers, the Mavs, the Warriors, Jazz, Timberwolves, Pelicans, with the Lakers at 12th right now. With a 29-32 record. And that leads me to what I wanted to talk about with the NBA. The Lakers completed a comeback against Dallas, the first team in 138 tries this season to come back after trailing by 27 points at the half this season. That's a big deal, right? It is a big deal. But we got something out of that. LeBron got hurt. Mm-hmm. And now, not even out of that, but LeBron got hurt like a game or so later. And not in a bad way. What I mean by that is LeBron not in a healthy state. AD's out this game today because of being injured. Is the Lakers going to get a 6 seed? They're going to miss the buy-in game? Are they just missing the playoffs? Like what is happening, Jamar?
Zach, this is CrunchTime show, and we occasionally debate, but I'm calling you out, man. You sounded way too excited talking about LeBron being injured. Don't be one of those guys.
I'm not excited he's hurt. I'm excited to see what the Lakers do without him. That's my excitement. It's not that he's hurt. It's that I want to see what they do without him, because he claimed that it's out of his DNA to miss the playoffs 2 years in a row. Now he has no really control on it.
Am
I wrong?
He's not. You got the DNA test. can only be used if he was a part of the scene, and he's
You're
not
right.
a part of the scene right now.
You're
So, I
right.
mean,
So then I should decline. I should tell my DNA testers to get off. Is that what you're saying? I should tell him to leave his house alone.
it's different when he's not playing, man.
You're
But
right,
I mean,
it
you talk
is.
about the Lakers.
They could get a win tonight.
Anthony Davis played last night against the Grizzlies. What do you have, like about 36?
He put it up
about
against
15
us, yes.
rebounds, like 5 blocks.
He put it
had
up
a
against us.
monster game, and they lost.
Yeah, they did.
And it's like, I mean, Grizzlies are granted a top
Second team.
Second team.
Second team in the.
So I mean,
second team right now in the West.
And it was a game where towards the end, the score got a little out of their hand, but it was a game where they were competing in for most of it. So you talk about the Lakers just with no LeBron, still kind of competing with that roster they have.
They did that comeback, by the way, against Dallas. Kyrie Irving.
And might add
Luka too. That's big.
Luka and Kyrie playing together are 1-4 since they've done that.
They look great playing together,
Yeah.
but
They do. It's
but they
fun
don't
to
have a
watch.
record.
It's fun to watch, man, but you got to get wins.
How about the KD, the shade from Giannis to KD about come practice with me so I can show you how to run a team instead of team hopping so much? How about that? You guys, what do you guys think about that, real quick?
Well, I think we all understand that KD is not a very well liked person within the NBA, which he gets
when you hop to your fourth team in what, 3 years?
Yeah, which he gets his
3 or 4
he
years?
gets his debut tonight with the Suns, so that's something to look forward to tonight.
Shout out Barry Gresham.
Yeah, Barry Gresham. Shout out to him. He gets to see.
I know
his
Barry's
guy.
going to be happy about that. I'm happy about it too.
Well,
KD's going to do great for Phoenix.
It'll be interesting because again, it's he joins another quote unquote super team, right? When he's with the Warriors, he had a point guard, he had a shooting guard, he had a really
Booker
good center.
mentioned about that being a super team too. By the
Yep.
way, that's a very interesting standpoint from their own players calling themselves not a super team with KD coming in.
Well, it is a super team.
It
I don't
is.
care what you call it. It is a super team.
Right.
But we'll get to see that tonight. Now, granted, Giannis, to be fair, Giannis himself has not. It's a silly statement because no one can do it by themselves. Even LeBron James, who we mentioned, cannot do it by himself. Giannis couldn't
Facts.
do it by himself.
Very true.
He has Middleton. He has Holiday. He has a solid bench. Guess what? You can't do it by yourself. Even the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, had Scottie Pippen. He had Dennis Rodman.
Dennis
He
Rodman.
had Steve Kerr, a solid bench. So
Depth
I
was
think
important.
I think it's a little bit of a cheap shot, but granted, it's against KD, so we all accept it because no one likes KD.
And he was on the Daily Show too, so you kind of take a little bit of humor out of it, right?
You just made me think of something, though. As far as the NBA, then, when you talk about certain players, so a team like the Grizzlies, if they were to win a championship this year, Grizzlies are not a super team.
No.
So do you?
No.
And John Morant, I'm assuming, would be a Finals MVP in that
Probably.
conversation. So
Yeah.
would he probably have in the last couple of years probably the best championship ever, like win wise? We talk about the team that he has with the Grizzlies.
If they got it done this year,
Yeah.
If they got it done this
they'd
year.
have one of the better runs in the last 5 or 6 years, I think. I mean, I still think you can't discredit Golden State and how they had that winning record season, one of the most wins almost in that season. Had the way
That's
Golden
another
State
thing,
ran
too.
that record
You talk about that was with no KD. That was with
Yeah.
the
No KD.
young. I mean,
Yeah.
Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Steph Curry. I mean, a mini big three in my opinion back then. So I mean,
they're
it's
still a big three
homegrown.
now too.
yeah.
But it's a homegrown situation where you draft guys. You maybe sign a guy at free agency, but they're homegrown talent, like the
Right.
Grizzlies you mentioned.
Yeah.
They're homegrown talent. They're guys they drafted. They're guys that they maybe signed off waivers or whatever. But this is like, hey, the best player just choosing, saying, I'm going to that team. That's a little different
Yeah.
in people's minds.
And I agree. So if Phoenix wins the championship, they're not going to get a lot of love.
No, they're not.
No.
No, but you know who will? KD in the city of Phoenix if they get the championship. But the last thing I want to mention about basketball, and we got to move on to a couple of things. Jimmy and Dee Haslam have, we all know them from Tennessee. All those people love them. Who own the NFL Cleveland Browns. They have bought Mark Lasry's shares of the Milwaukee Bucks. Lasry was the leading guy for team decisions. He was split between 3 other people as well for these types of shares, each with equal shares of the team. So they only own a portion of the team. However, they will have rights to what the team does because that's what Mark's role was. So they're taking over that role. So this is a very interesting concept right now with the Milwaukee Bucks. There's a chance that we could see some stuff happening with the NFL and this team, some rebranding possibly a move maybe down the road because the Haslams are not afraid to do some crazy stuff and move stuff around. They're the same guy that signed Deshaun Watson to a guaranteed $255 million deal. So we all know that can happen, right, and how that's going to be weird. But with that said, I want to make some quick mentions real quick. College baseball news, while the rankings will come back next week, we do not have them right now because it's still in week 2. I want to congratulate Tennessee baseball coach Tony Vitello, I think that's how you say his name, returns from suspension, and their shortstop comes back, reinstated with eligibility as well. They had suspended him for some issues regarding that shortstop, so he comes back. Into MLB news, Major League Baseball has done some new stuff. We're gonna dive more deep into this MLB stuff probably in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we won't do it next week because we've got spring break. But Manny Machado, I need his agent I need his agent right now because
Payday.
I want that payday. At my age, I'm the same age as this man, right? Well, almost. Not there yet. Yeah. But same age as this man. He signs an 11-year deal for $350 million, right? He'll play till he's 41 years old, according to this deal. An 11-year deal with the Padres, who he revitalized his franchise. It's a great thing. As you guys can see, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts signed a big deal as well. You've got Tatis Jr., because I know, make sure I say that right, because I know you're going to get me if I don't. Yu Darvish as well gets a good one. Musgrove got one as well. Soto, I don't know what Soto's deal was off the top of my head, and I know the graphic doesn't show that either, but Soto got a good deal too, so I mean, like, there's a lot of interesting things, but I do want to talk about some rule changes. They've got a pitch clock now, bigger bases, no infield shift. Those are big deals. We'll talk about more of those things next show on Crunch Time, which will be the following week, not next week. But we'll talk about those because the time's running a little low, so I want to make sure we cover everything else. NHL news, quick mention real quick. Congratulations to the Nashville Predators. David Pohle, I think is how you say his last name. I always can mess his name up. The original general manager for the Predators. He is retiring. Barry Trotz, the franchise's first ever winning coach, will take over as GM. As soon as that announcement was made, they started trading players and getting stuff done. I think it's a great thing for the Preds. And so a lot of stuff happening for them right now as well. Let's talk about the NFL. NFL division overview right now this week. It's the NFC North. We got Green Bay wondering if Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers is going to be starting a quarterback there. Are the Lions trending upwards, or are they still going to be the Lions next season? Will the Bears trade out their number one pick? They've got a lot of suitors. And how will the Vikings can the Vikings make it over their playoff woes? Remember last week we talked about these divisions and what we're looking at. So let's talk about Green Bay. I'm gonna rule you first on this, all right? Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers, who's starting in Green Bay?
It's got to be Jordan Love.
I think you're right.
I think at this point you've got to sit there and
Darkness Retreat's gone.
I put in my notes that Aaron Rodgers is holding them hostage.
Oh, absolutely.
And
he did it last year,
he's
too.
He's pretending like he's Bane from Batman going, I was born in the darkness. He's sitting there doing his little darkness retreat, which is, hey, it's fine. Whatever floats your boat.
That was good.
But it's like, okay, man, like, I need you to be serious. You're supposed to be the face of this franchise, but you're acting kind of childishly. Give Jordan, because listen, Jordan Love's got 2 years after on his contract,
and Love wanted to be traded at the start of the season because Rodgers was back.
Absolutely. So you got 2 years. You've also got a 5th-year option, but you have to see now. You have to see what you can do now with him, because if not, you're going to be sitting there at the
again.
5th-year option. That is.
He's a former offensive coordinator for the Titans. I can't remember. LaFleur.
Yeah,
if LaFleur's smart, he gets rid of Rodgers.
Yeah, but then again, his paycheck is going to be. It's going to deter suitors.
I'm going to say something that I wish I would never say live on air ever again, and I will never say it after today because somebody keeps telling me this. Because I argue about cap in the NFL all the time, right? I keep getting told the cap's irrelevant, so I'm going to use their argument for once. The cap's irrelevant for Aaron Rodgers at this point. So because you're getting 24 or 25 million on March 15th.
Yeah.
So I mean, at that point, you've got that cap sold up for some of that contract. Rodgers staying or gone? That's my question to you.
He's gone.
He's gone. Where's he going?
Don't ask me that, man. Don't ask me that. I mean,
I think he's going to the Jets.
You think he's going to the Jets?
The Jets will trade anything to get a quarterback.
He plays in the cold.
They had Brett Favre.
So, they also had Ryan Fitzpatrick.
It's only right for them to take the guy that came back from Green Bay, right? I mean,
I could see New York for sure.
Are the Lions trending up?
Absolutely.
I think so too.
100%.
They're my favorite team outside the Titans.
Happy. Dan the man.
Outside the Titans, Dan Campbell, when I watched him on Hard Knocks, I was like, dude, if I wasn't a diehard Titans fan, I would immediately switch to the Lions.
I would play for him.
Oh, my gosh.
I would play for him so bad.
So you look at...
Get up and bite knees off.
They cut some players to clear up some cap space. They have the second most minus the Bears, which is granted the Bears could buy like the NFL with the amount of cap space they got. So they have
Not
that.
Deshaun Watson's contract.
No.
Most of the NFL, yes.
No, most of the NFL. But they have a lot of really good young talent. Jared Goff is playing really good football right now. And Dan Campbell, like, you can just see the guys want to win for them. They were one game from missing the playoffs. And even when they knew they weren't going to make the playoffs, they said, you know what? If I can't go, you can't go to the Green Bay. So I love the spoiler. That. I love that spoiler.
I do want to mention real fast before I go into the Bears stuff, Chiefs did promote Matt Nagy to the OC position. That's
good move.
Great move for them, I think. Although I wish, Matt proved that he couldn't run a team, but he is a good offensive coordinator at least, right?
Well, Patrick Mahomes helps out a little bit.
It helps out a lot of bit. And I do want to mention Carson Wentz was released by Washington. No surprise there. We knew that was going to happen. The Commanders did not like Wentz after like week 3. So we knew that was going to happen. But to the Bears, are they trading their number one pick? Jamar?
Yeah. I mean, just
think
from
so too.
what we've been seeing in the media, I would agree with
Who's
that.
most likely getting it? I know I'm asking you tough questions.
So talk to me. I'm gonna flip it back on.
Okay, that's fine.
I feel like that is that number one pick going to be a quarterback, and if that kind of actually makes your question is
if Chicago keeps the pick,
then it's not going to be a quarterback.
But if Chicago trades, then it's Bryce. It's young. It's
so
young.
then you look at a team that needs a quarterback. I mean, Washington. What are they going to do right now?
Well,
I don't think
Washington's
Reese
won,
would like.
but I think you've got the Colts that want to trade in. Atlanta's talking about trading in if they don't get Lamar Jackson.
Panthers.
You've got the Panthers talking about it. You've got what is it? The Broncos have talked about trading up, but they have nothing to do with trading. So they're trying to trade picks from next year to try to trade into this draft this year to get a first-round pick. They're trying to get the number 1 overall pick. I think if you're the Bears, you trade and you get pieces around Justin Fields. I think that's what you do with that.
Another thing to talk about, too, is you talk about, I think it's been recently talked about as far as first number 1 pick quarterbacks and how it seems like how important is it?
We've had 16 number 1 quarterbacks picked in the last.
And you talk about how of them that have really became like
none
top
really.
dogs.
I mean, a couple, maybe 2 or 3.
There's a handful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just because it's the most important position on the field. Yeah. Now, granted, one guy, and we actually saw this happen today. Jalen Carter from Alabama, or not Alabama, from Georgia, excuse me.
Yeah, no, he's the top prospect, and he's under investigation right now.
Which you would argue, okay, if Chicago would have taken him at number 1, that was probably what the consensus move right now. So now you got to think Chicago's maybe out on him as a player. So that really, I mean, maybe Will Anderson, from Alabama, the edge rusher. Maybe an offensive lineman because that's desperately what they need. But I think if they're going offensive line, they trade back to like 10, 11, 12, something like that.
Right.
Get some extra capital.
Want to mention – I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. Because I put on there, like, they are trending up, Chicago Bears, but they have so many holes. It's like, dude, they need at least one.
They need a lot. But the Bears administration is the one that's in rules. And I know a Bears fan that listens to our show that will happily admit this, that the administration is the only one that can mess this up. And they very well could. They very well could mess it up. But with that being said, I think the Vikings can make it over their playoff woes if they just figure out what the deal is with Captain Kirk in the offseason. That's my thing for that. That does it for the division overview. And for the NFL, I want to mention the A.J. McCarron story that I really liked by the XFL. We don't have much time left, so I'm going to make this kind of quick real fast. A.J. McCarron gave up more money as to be a backup so that he could be a starter in the XFL just so his kids could watch him play. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson shared a tweet about that. Most heartfelt thing I've ever seen, and it made me love the XFL even more. Plays for the St. Louis Battlehawks, yes, and they are 2-0. The Seattle Speaking of the XFL, the Seattle Sea Dragons fought a hard game but would lose to the Battlehawks 20-18. DC Defenders would get help from the rainy weather and win 18-6 against the Vegas Vipers. The San Antonio Brahmas would debut some new uniforms and get a win for 30-12 over the Orlando Guardians. And the Houston Roughnecks with good old-fashioned I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I've got it right here. Good old-fashioned Wade Phillips is coaching for the Roughnecks in Arlington, and he's running a number 1 defense right now for them as well.
Not surprising.
That brings us back to this week's games because the Roughnecks and Arlington against the Renegades. So we get this week's matchups. We have Seattle Sea Dragons versus the Vegas Vipers on Fox Saturday at March 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The St. Louis Battlehawks will play the DC Defenders at DC. That's going to be Fox Sunday at March 5th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. The Guardians will play the Renegades Sunday, March 5th as well. And the San Antonio Brahmas and the Roughnecks will play each other Sunday, March 5th as well on ESPN2. That game will be at 8 p.m. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of you so much for always being here. But the last thing I want to ask you is what team do you think is going to be 3-0 out of this 2-0 matchup between the Battlehawks and the DC Defenders?
You know what my answer is.
Yeah,
I know what your
I want to
answer
add too.
I'm taking DC.
You gave me a week to.
I did. Who's your
team?
Who's your team? I got a couple minutes left.
So before you sent the rundown, I already found out about that McCarron story, and
so you're a Battlehawks
that sold
fan,
me to the Battlehawks. Yes, sir.
I don't blame you. It almost
too,
sold me too. So I don't blame you as well. To be real, I almost did the same thing. Guys, thank you so much week in and week out for coming here and doing these shows. Reminder, you can find us on at APSU CrunchTime on Twitter or Instagram to talk to us week in and week out about these shows. We'll happily answer any questions you have, and we'll ask you some of our own as well. Find us on social media to keep up with our show and what we're doing as well after this possible show. Reminder, we will not have a Crunch Time next week due to spring break here at Austin Peay State University. Special thanks to Doc V, David Ellison, Steve Sawyer, Trey Whiteout as well. And I'll even thank Reese Britt, even though he's not here today as well. Thank you guys so much for making the show possible week in and week out. We can't do it without you, and it's always greatly appreciated. With that being said, guys, have a great spring break. I can't wait to see you guys. I'll see you Sunday. But you guys have a great spring break, and I'll see you next time on Crunch Time.